you can follow me.
Whoa.
Yeah.
He doesn't even have that Piper thing going. I don't know. Okay. I love to hear that when the kids are leaving. Not for the reason that you think. I think it's a beautiful noise myself. What do you think? It is indeed. You know, we've been reading through the Beatitudes, and we've been focusing on the Beatitudes. I don't know if you've been taking this to heart. I hope you have. Because let me tell you what, folks, this is not easy. This is the greatest sermon in the world that Jesus preached, and it is not easy. So, you know, if you haven't been focusing on this during the week, I hope you will. And it's not too late to start at all. It's never too late to start on it. We've been studying these Beatitudes that Jesus gave us. He gave to what he called his disciples or his learners. Now, you know who that would be today? That would be you and me. Are you learners? You know, learners means that you're actually learning. I don't mean you're going to have a test on Friday. And don't worry about it. Doesn't mean they're going to post your grades where everybody else can see it. Your grades are posted where everybody else can see it, but nobody judges you here, right? Jesus Christ is the only one. But he did. He preaches to his learners, and what he was saying is that I'm going to show you things. Like he said in Matthew 28, he says you and I are supposed to go out and teach everything that he commanded us, right? But here are his commands. Now here's something I want you to notice when you read through these Beatitudes. It doesn't say, if you do this. It says, blessed are those who do. That means that you do it. It doesn't mean you think about it and say, I think I might try this one. Well, that one doesn't really work for me. It's not anything like that at all. This is something that you do. And we found that these things are to be manifested in our lives, all of them. Not one or two. A lot of people want to try them. As a matter of fact, the Catholic Church even says, you know, okay, if you can get all of these, then you can actually be awarded a saint medal. It's not the way it works. Everybody here is to do everything that Jesus said. And here's the thing. We found if we do not do it, it's hard being in the world. Because you see, these things don't come naturally. What Jesus said to do, it makes us different. We are different. If you've been doing these things, then you'll notice we are different. We're a peculiar people. And when the world sees us manifested in Christians, you know what happens? They're surprised. If you go out and you do what Jesus said to do, if these things show up in your life, the world's going to look at you like you are crazy. We've already said that, right? Well, we are the Boulevardians. That sounds like something out of a sci-fi movie. It's okay, we're different, right? I'm proud to be a Boulevardian. I may even get a medal. What do you think? It says I'm a Boulevardian. What do you think? Huh? I don't know. Okay, don't. You know, they're even alarmed that we're different and we are so much different. This morning, I want us to move on to the next one. These things are getting harder. Have you noticed? Well, I'll talk about that in here a minute. This morning, we're going to say, blessed are the meek. This is so different than the rest of the world. Blessed are the meek, for they will inherit the earth. Think about that. The world conquest given to meek of all people. We will be the conquerors of the world. Remember that song? The world out there, they think in terms of strength, power, ability, self-assurance, aggressiveness. That's what they taught us in school. Is that what they taught you in school? That's what they taught me. I had a physics teacher, Mrs. Taylor, one of my favorites, and she said, she was always encouraging, saying, you know what, you have to be different than everybody else. Okay. Didn't have any problems with that one, I already was. But she said, if you can be the most successful person alive, All you have to do is you have to be aggressive. You have to be assertive. Use that brain of yours. Outthink everybody. Outsmart everybody. And you know what? You could be even the President of the United States. Matter of fact, she said that to the whole class. And she said, you know what? The President of the United States may be, future President of the United States may be sitting in this class or one of the classrooms around here. She was right. 42nd President of the United States wasn't that far away, sitting in a classroom just like that. How horrible to think that it was done with cunningness, with deceitfulness, with power, with all those things that we associate with success. You know, the world holds people like that is to be important, to be great saviors of the world. You know, one of my heroes was Sam Walton. Sam Walton was a guy who went out and he changed the way that you and I buy. He changed the way the whole world buys by changing their thought process. Everybody can be successful and have all the things of the world. And he helped them do that through cunning, being cunning and relentless and all those things that the world preaches. You know, another hero, at least was kind of a hero of mine, still is really in a way, not spiritually, was Steve Jobs. Job was relentless. Yeah, he said the whole world, everybody can have an extension of your mind. If the world can think, if something can think for you, then we can all be successful, right? And think how all that happened. We can focus on developing this power. All that stuff in the world, we bring it all up around us. Wow, success, strong, aggressive, cunning, relentless, ruthless. And then Jesus said, blessed are the meek, for they will inherit the earth. You know, the world's idea of is conquest and possessing everything. You know that old bumper sticker, he who has the most toys wins. You know, the better you are at goal planning for your own goals, reaching your own successes, the better organized you are, the better you are at asserting yourself. How many times do we give in to the person who's yelling the loudest when they are the most wrong? But we still give in, don't we? Instead of going to God's Word and holding it up next to this. The more you focus on your abilities and powers, the more likely you are to succeed. But here comes Jesus. Blessed are the meek. They are the winners. They're the ones who inherit the earth. And they alone, not anybody else, they win in the end. Wow. Here we are, reminded one more time how different we are. And we are different. We're meant to be different. We have a different quality about us. Everything's different. There's an essential difference that we have, and the world needs to see it. They want to be winners. The only way they're ever going to win is with Jesus Christ. I can tell you that right now. That's his promise, and it's right here in his word. We can do all those things they teach us to be crafty and cunning and all that. I've tried it. There's only one way to win, and that's in Jesus Christ. That's life eternal through him. This world is just not like him. Here's the thing, they can't even understand him. That's our problem out there in the world, isn't it? He's an enigma to the world. And you know what? Here's the problem. We are an enigma to the world if we're in Jesus Christ. And if you're not seen as that way, then guess what that says about your testimony in Christ? When Jesus said this very thing, blessed are the meek, he said it to an audience just like is in here this morning, and just like we face every day out in the world. He said it to a bunch of Jewish people who were looking for a Messiah. And they not even thought that they were going to be the winners materialistically, which is the way that we think. They also said they were going to win militarily. They thought that they were going to win and go out and conquer the world with spears, or they didn't have bombs back then. Whatever it is they were using, they were going to go out and they were going to conquer the world militarily, and they were going to own it materialistically. Who does that sound like? I think Jesus put these Beatitudes at the very beginning of the greatest sermon in the world, the beginning of the Sermon on the Mount, for that very reason. Because he's saying, he diffused all of that thinking, didn't he? Blessed are the meek. We don't do it that way, folks. Jesus says, I don't do it that way. I'm God. I have all the power in the world. But I want you to come to me because you love me and you see my love. Not because I beat you to a pulp. Big difference. The Christian church thinks in terms of fighting the world and sin and all that opposes Christ through large organizations. Well, sure. And with complete business plans or war plans, some of them even call them. And they're going to conquer the world for Christ. But they say, wait a minute, the church is divided. So let's just all gather together under one big plan that we put together instead of the one that God has put together right here. And let's do it our way. All of us together. Let's all agree in one big world church. And we must all join in one common plan to be one huge organization to face this organized enemy called Satan. And then we'll be conquerors. Wow. Sounds like a great pep talk, doesn't it? Anybody here saying, send me in, coach? Blessed are the meek. That's what Jesus says. Not those who trust in their own business plan or their war plan. Not those who trust in their own abilities, their own powers, their own institutions. It's actually just the opposite. And you know what? We see that all the way through the Bible. Remember Joshua? That's one of my favorite ones. God has spoken to Joshua, and he says, okay, you're going to go take Jericho, this big, powerful walls. And so Joshua, being a military guy, had this general mind, he goes down and gets ready to go in, and standing in front of him is God's commander of his army. And he tells Joshua, we're doing it God's way. And Joshua, what does Joshua do? He says, okay. Instead of going to have to scale those walls or knock them down or build ramparts to get across them, you know what happened? The walls fell down because they did it God's way. I'll tell you another one of my favorites is Gideon. You know, Gideon had this, we don't know how many exactly, but tens of thousands of armed warriors that had come up against it. And Gideon gets his, 10,000, and then the Lord whittles it down, and he keeps whittling it down and whittles it down. He only has 300. Why is that? We always say, well, it's because God wanted to get all the glory. And he did. But they had to do it God's way. Do you see that meekness in that? See the meekness in Joshua when he said, okay, God, your power, your strength, your way. Said the same thing to Gideon. You know, they all had a way. They were going to go take it by man's way, right? God says, no. You be meek. You do it my way. So as we take this statement apart, I want you to look at how it relates to the previous two Beatitudes. Because here's another thing we said. All these are connected. Remember the first thing we said was, 2 weeks ago, I said that they come in a logical sequence. It's not in random. And you can't go and try one and try another one or anything like that. You have to do them in order. You have to take them in order. And it's getting harder with each one, isn't it? First thing we said was we had to declare ourselves spiritually bankrupt. Here we are, have all these years trying to be a spiritual warrior. And I have to come before my God and say, you know what, I'm broke. Spiritually broke. We have to do that every day. It's only through God's Spirit that I'm strengthened. So I have to come to that point. When I come to that point, I realize I am useless, hopeless against my God, who is perfect. I come to him, and then the next thing I have to do is cry out. I mourn. Just like you see Isaiah did, or even John in Revelation. I'm done in. Because I've come before my God. And he says to do that. And that's only then can we come and say, you know what? I'm meek. I'm humbled. That's when you say, okay, I am humbled. Not weak. Yeah, I'm weak without God. but I'm meek. And then we realize our weakness and our own inability. And then here's the thing, we still have to face God, don't we? Everyone here has to face God. All of us do. We get to do that through Jesus Christ. That's a big advantage that you and I have, isn't it? If we receive Christ, Jesus stands in for us. But here's the thing, because we're poor in spirit, we can't do anything on our own merit because we're broke. We're spiritually broke, bankrupt, done. And the realization of our sinfulness and our true nature and our helplessness because our sin in us causes us to mourn, and we cry out with Paul. We say, "O wretched man that I am, who will deliver me from this body of death?" Paul said that after he'd already met Jesus. He came to that same point. But now Jesus is telling us to be even more searching. Look inside there even harder, because blessed are the meek. He promises us a blessing. Did you hear that? We have to come to that point. If you haven't come to that point in your spiritual life, you need to catch up. So why is it that he says blessed are the meek? Why is that? Because we reach the point where I'm concerned about what other people think. Seems like that's going on a lot, about what other people think. You know, I can see my own terrible rottenness inside of me, but when other people see it and they know it too, you know what? I don't need anybody telling me that. Do you? Kind of hurts, doesn't it? Are we all in this together? I pray that we are. You know, I'm aware and I'm honest with myself and of the sin and the evil with me is dragging me down. But you know what? And I'm ready to face this with God, but I'm not ready to face it with the rest of you guys looking at me. That's kind of tough, isn't it? You know, when someone comes to me and said, "Hey, buddy, you got some sin there." And I said, "Yeah, I know." They said, "Well, the first thing I want to do is deck them." You ever anybody else feel that way? And when it comes down to it, wouldn't you really rather find your own fault than have someone else tell you about it? Yeah. Look, I'm a sinner, and I really resent someone else pointing that out to me. It really is more humbling and humiliating to let someone else do it, isn't it? So, show me someone who is meek, who does that. Show me someone that, what is that person really like? You know, the first one that comes to mind, I hope you've been reading through the Bible. Because, you know, when we got to Abraham, think about Abraham, the very beginning of his life. Remember how he dealt with Lot back in Genesis? You know, here's this Genesis 13, if you want to go look it up. How he allowed this younger man to assert himself in his life and to take the first joy and the first choice of where he was going to go with the land. Abraham did that without complaint. He was God. You got it? That's meekness. You know, and in Numbers, look at Moses. Now, I don't know how often we think about it, but the Bible actually says, now Moses was a very humble man, more humble than anyone else on all the face of the earth. You know, you read about him and see what, think about that. He was the son of Pharaoh's daughter. He could have had all that stuff going on, but you know what he did? He weighed the facts, and he chose to follow God. Go read the whole story. God wouldn't manage in his life. Well, he did when Moses led him, didn't he? And Moses gave in. That's meekness. He gave up all of that Pharaoh stuff. I don't know. It looked pretty good in the movie to me. How about David? You know, here was David being chased by a king. David had already been anointed king. And yet he let Saul chase him all over the place, right? Knowing that that was God's choice. That's meekness. That's really his meekness. You know, all the other prophets were preaching during, when you read in the Old Testament. You know, my favorite, or maybe not, Jeremiah. Jeremiah was a loner. He could have done anything. And he comes preaching what God told him to preach, which was the most unpopular thing that could have been preached at that time in the Old Testament. And here comes Jeremiah. He preached it anyway. That's meekness, isn't it? He didn't care what other people thought. He only cared what God was telling him to do, and he followed him. In the New Testament, we see over and over this meekness in first church disciples. You know, read about Stephen. Read that in Acts 6. Read about Paul's letters, and you're going to find meekness in all those lines. He wrote especially his letter to the church at Corinth. We've been studying that on Thursday nights and one other day. And if you go and read what went on in the church in Corinth, Paul had gone and preached. And they said, okay, this guy, Paul, he may be good now, but you know what? He's in jail. Let me tell you about how to stay out of jail and how you can be rich and wealthy and all of that and still call ourselves Christians. Never heard that story before, have you? That was going on back in Corinth. So what did Paul do? He didn't care about any of those things that were said about him. He was meek. He found his strength in God. He says, and you know what? The most important one I think of all is Jesus. You want to see a model of meekness? The Son of God had all that power and all that strength available to him at any time. You know what he says? Come unto me, all ye that labor. I'm taking this from the King James. Come, all ye to me, all ye that labor and are heavy laden, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn of me. For I am meek and lowly in heart, and you'll find rest in your souls. For my yoke is easy and my burden is light. There's meekness. There's the model of meekness, who we should be. And look at Jesus' whole life, and you're going to see his meekness personified in Jesus' life and his walk and all that he did. You're going to see it first in his reaction to other people. How he suffered sarcasm, scorn, persecution. Isaiah said it right when he said, a bruised reed, he was talking about Jesus coming, a bruised reed he will not break, and a faintly burning wick he will not quench. Talking about Jesus coming now. Those are Old Testament words. Like other witnesses of meekness in the Bible, his attitude